Patience and skill required now on BBC One. Patrick Moore looks at the challenge of photographing the sky at night.
Have you ever thought about astronomical photography? Good evening. People like to look at the sky, others like to photograph it. Well, we've all seen those superb pictures sent back from the Hubble Space Telescope, but nowadays amateurs can do very well indeed. And this evening we're going to meet two. John Fletcher, who may say is a fairly conventional photographer, and Steve Wainwright, who's adept at surveillance cameras and gets remarkable results. Also, we're going to launch a photographic competition at the end of the program. First, an interesting news note. A new large Kuiper belt object has been found. These objects are planetary. They go around the sun, near and beyond the path of Pluto, and some of them are quite big. This one, originally named Quadrawa, really is large. 800 miles across, taking 288 years to go once around the sun. The largest object of its kind found, except Pluto. And Pluto itself may be nothing more than a large Kuiper belt object. So first of all, come down with me to John Fletcher's observatory in Gloucestershire. John Fletcher's interest in astronomy dates back to 1969, with the first moon landing. Since 1977, he's concentrated upon astronomical photography.
This is my Mount Tuffley Observatory in Gloucester, and here you have a Meade LX200 10-inch or 25 centimetre Smith Cassegrain telescope. The telescope currently is fully robotic and it's networked to the house, where I can control it robotically for supernova patrolling or searching for and studying near-Earth asteroids. This on the back here is for wide field astrophotography. You can put a variety of lenses on here actually, and this one in particular is a 300mm lens that I picked up many years ago for about £10. It gives excellent images. The field of view in it is 7.5 by 4.5 degrees, and it's ideal for catching comets and larger star clusters as such. I then wanted to photograph galaxies to do supernova patrol work, and most of these galaxies are very small. So I switched the manual camera to the prime focus position, which is just here. And in the mid-80s, the CCD, the Charge Coupled Device, electronic imaging cameras, which are in general about 25,000 times more sensitive and more fast, and also, not to get too technical, they don't fog like the films. Now I can record stars, I can record stellar images, magnitude 18.5, using a 10-inch telescope. And when you consider that in the 60s, the 100-inch Hooker telescope on Mount Wilson had a visual limiting magnitude of magnitude 18.8. So basically, amateurs now, armed with a charge coupled device, can actually record images, stellar images, of the same magnitude that many of the big professional telescopes could record visually in the 60s.
John, we've seen your observatory and I'm most impressed. Let's have a look at some of your pictures. What about that lovely view of Ursa Major, the Great Bear?
Yes, well, this photograph here, Patrick, was taken using the 50mm lens. It actually is 1,000 square degrees of sky, and you can see the 7 stars of the Big Dipper and lots more down to magnitude 9 or 10. Magnitude 10 being at least 100 times fainter than what the human eye can see on an average night in Britain.
Well, I think everyone knows Ursa Major. The other great northern constellation is Cassiopeia, the W.
That's right, yes, and this is a beautiful photograph of Cassiopeia. Again, like the first one, only a 24-second exposure, because that's the maximum duration that you can open the shutter with a standard lens before, due to the diurnal motion of the Earth, you get star trailing, and hence the images become blurred and trailed.
And of course, occasionally you get something unusual. Ever tried meteor photography?
I certainly have, yes, and here's a splendid photograph of the 8th and the 9th of November 1991 of a meteor that passed underneath to the northwest of the pointers in Ursa Major. And here you can see it fills a complete screen, and it was brighter than the full moon. And this was surely by chance, Patrick.
Let's go now beyond our solar system, shall we? Let's get out to the stars. What about star clusters?
The star clusters, Patrick, I use telephoto lenses and lenses which I piggyback mount on the telescope, and the telescope is driven, so hence it allows for the diurnal motion of the Earth. As you can see by this superb photograph here, Messier 39, a triangular shaped star cluster in Cygnus, the Swan, can be seen here with myriads of hundreds of thousands of stars all around it, recorded in this few minutes exposure piggyback mounted using fast tracks film again, Patrick.
What about prime focus photography?
Well, prime focus photography, Patrick, is going to gain the maximum amount of light into your camera, but it's going to be the smallest field of view. The average focal length of a telescope is perhaps 2,000 millimeters,
yeah,
and the field of view is going to be about 1.5 degrees by 1 degree. And on the 20th of September, this photograph here of Halley's Comet, when it was 14th magnitude and it was 200 million miles away from the Earth, was a 30-minute guided exposure, and I was basically sat at an illuminated crosshair for 30 solid minutes at 3:30 in the morning.
Amazing. Now, we've been talking now about film photography. Now, what about CCDs?
Well, CCD photography, Patrick, is the answer to a deep sky recorder's dreams. And linked with the modern telescopes, which are fully computerized and the drives are corrected automatically with programs, they are absolutely superb. I'll give you an example of this beautiful galaxy, Messier 106, in Canis Venatici, and there's also NGC 891, which is Caldwell number 23, I might add, and also the galaxy in Pegasus, NGC 7331, Caldwell number 30, is another splendid deep sky object that at prime focus using a CCD camera gives an absolutely superb full field of view of the object.
Well, you've got a marvellous setup there. You're doing great work. I say, but you are by profession. You're a postman. When do you sleep?
Very little, unless it's in the afternoon, Patrick.
Cameras of all kinds can be got today. What about the little web camera? Costs no more than £30, and astronomically, it can be used to great effect. What about these surveillance cameras used in shops? I'm standing in a shop, actually Budgeon's in Selsey. Now, supposing I decided to steal something. The camera up there would catch me, and quite rightly so. But what about using one of these cameras for looking at the sky? That's just what Dr. Steve Wainwright's been doing. He's adapted this new technique, and he's taking some remarkable pictures.
Well, Patrick, we use two kinds of cameras, really. There are two related technologies. One is the technology of the surveillance camera, the sort of camera that might catch Patrick Moore shoplifting and stealing loaves of bread, for example.
Exactly.
And also a webcam, a video conferencing camera that you might talk to Auntie May on the other side of the world.
Yes.
And both of these cameras we can modify in various ways. Simple ways, simply by removing the lens and adding an adapter in place of it, and we can put one of these onto a telescope.
And my dear, 15-inch.
Indeed. Another way that we can modify them is because these cameras can only take very, very short exposures of about a 50th of a second. Some of the members of my imaging group have made electronic modifications to them which enable us to take true long exposures from either webcams or surveillance cameras. And this means that the amateur can now use these sort of technologies very cheaply to produce images that rival some of those produced by the kind of devices that John uses.
Well, let's now see some of your results.
Right, well, the first thing I want to show you here, Patrick, is an amazing animation taken by Antonio Cidadeo in Portugal. And this is done by one of these little webcams, and you can see that he's managed to capture a complete lunation. And moreover, you can see the libration, you can see the movement of the moon, you can see it nodding backwards and forwards, and you can actually see it getting larger and smaller, as it really does.
That's amazing.
And here's one I'd like you to look at. It's got Sinus, Iridum, and it has Plato in there. And something else that I think is quite important to you as well.
There, the ghost crater, adjoining Plato, and my suggestion, now we know Bliss, after Nathaniel Bliss, the only astronomer Roy who didn't have a crater.
Yes.
And that's it, they make it up Bliss, and they have done so. A ghost, we just about see it there.
Yeah.
Very much eroded away. Must once have been a magnificent formation. It's been destroyed by later forces.
The next thing I'd like to show you is another bright object, the brightest of the lot.
The sun?
This is the sun, yes. And here you can see faculae, you can see the bright images, you can see the penumbra and the umbra of a large group of sunspots there.
What about comets?
This is a comet picture. I took this picture of comet Ikea-Zhang, and I took it with a normal surveillance camera. Well, I say normal, but it's one that's able to take quite long exposures. And so in real time, we can look at very deep sky objects. And here's another picture of the same comet when it went into the morning sky. You see it's changed in appearance quite a lot.
Planets?
Planets, yes. We've been able to do two things with planets. Here you can see Jupiter, you can see the red spot beautifully, you can see the bands, and you can see lots of structure on it. Amazing that this has been taken by an ordinary video conferencing web camera. And then, again, other people have been able to take animations of, in this case, Jupiter. And here we've got the rotation of Jupiter, and you can see the red spot rotating.
What about Mars, my own particular interest?
Okay, Mars.
Not what's next.
Right. Well, here's a picture taken by Steve Massey down in Australia. He took a series of photographs and built them into an animation. And again, this has been taken with a surveillance camera. And he's taken pictures through red, blue and green filters and constructed a colour image. Here is an animation of the rotation of Mars.
That's amazing.
Absolutely remarkable, isn't it? And the detail on there approaches that taken by even the Hubble Space Telescope.
It does indeed. It's so much detail as I can ever see visually anyway with my 15-inch, probably
Yes.
rather more. Now on to the loveliest planet of all, Saturn.
Now this is a picture which, again, amazing that it's taken by a webcam. I think it's equal to anything that's taken by purpose-built astronomical CCD cameras. You can see the ring structure very well. You can see surface structure on the planet.
What telescope there?
This is a 10-inch Meade.
See the Encke division beautifully?
Yeah.
Yes, indeed. What about occultation of Saturn? I think you saw that, didn't you?
Yes.
Saturn coming out from behind the moon.
Yes.
I saw that one too, but my photograph wasn't as good as that.
Again, what's quite difficult here is to get both the moon and the planet correctly exposed. And this is something that techniques have been developed by members of the forum to, they practice, they exchange notes and tell each other just how they did it. So once one person's done it, then everyone should theoretically be able to do it.
Well, now let's go now, shall we, into deep sky, beyond our solar system.
Yes. Well, we'll start off with a modified video conferencing camera. Here's a picture of M42 and, in fact, M43.
The Orion Nebula.
The Orion Nebula, indeed. And you can see there is the trapezium, and here are these wonderful structures coming out from the centre of that particular nebula. And then something that you wouldn't believe came from a webcam. M51.
A whirlpool galaxy.
Whirlpool galaxy, the companion galaxy here, and look at the structure in the spiral arms.
And what telescope was that again?
This again is a 10-inch Schmidt-Cassegrain.
I mean, that is better than the Hubble 100-inch could do 60 years ago.
Yes,
Quite incredible.
yes, with a very cheap camera.
Huh.
And then with a surveillance camera, which has been electronically modified, we've been able to obtain pictures of M81 in Ursa Major.
Yes, indeed.
And it's quite a difficult object to photograph because the centre of it is very bright and the spiral arms are very dim. And so what people normally tend to do is to make a good image of the centre and miss the outside.
Yes.
But here we've been able to capture all of that galaxy. It's a beautiful galaxy with a surveillance camera that's been electronically modified. Right, now here we've got the Swan Nebula, and that was taken by a surveillance camera. You can see the head and the neck there and the body. Beautiful picture. And another one that I like particularly is the Trifid Nebula. And this is a picture that we took in Portugal at the Coa Observatory. This is through the 20-inch Newtonian telescope. Now there is one other technique that I really ought to show you, which is, I think, amazing. And this is a software technique that's been developed in the Coa Observatory at Portugal. And that is, well, here's a picture. We've synthesized a long exposure by actually adding together 2,000 video frames. The camera was on a static tripod, just pointing at the sky. And what you've got there is what you would expect. We've got star trails. But the software is able to calculate the rate of drift And then as each frame, each of those 2,000 frames is captured, it's able to sit the frame down exactly so that one star sits on top of the other. So we can truly synthesize a long exposure. And here it is. It's Coma Berenice with pinpoint stars. And that is approximately a 4-minute exposure.
Well, Steve, it's an amazing network. It does extend all over the world.
Yes, we've got members in 41 countries. There are currently 2,400 members. And these countries are as far apart as the United States, Russia, and of course Australia in the Antipodes.
And you're putting all these results together?
All the results we put together and we put onto a website. I maintain that website and it's updated regularly.
Are the professionals collaborating too?
Yes, we've got professionals who are becoming members and starting to use some of the equipment that we're using.
The point I'm making here is that the work you're doing is going to be of great value to professionals.
I think so. And another side that I think is particularly important, because it's relatively low cost, I think it's a way of encouraging astronomers to have a go at taking astrophotographs. Once they've achieved success with the kind of equipment that we're developing, they will feel inclined to go out and spend rather more money on state-of-the-art astronomical CCD cameras and produce maybe even better images.
What would you say is the financial outlay needed to really get going on your website?
I would say £100.
That's quite amazing, isn't it?
Yes.
Well, Steve, I do congratulate you. It's the most amazing feat. As you showed this program only a few years ago, no one would have believed it.
I know. 4 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it.
And now for our photographic competition. Here are the rules. Photograph any astronomical object. Photographs must be taken this year with your own equipment, and if you're under 21, please add your age. We'll select 10 finalists, post them on our web, and then have an online vote for the eventual winner. And here's where to send them. Look on the BBC webpage at www.bbc.co.uk/space or CFAX page 620. So go to it, and the best of luck. We've heard a great deal. We've seen very many good pictures. Now, can we imagine that I want to go in for astronomical photography and enter our competition? How do I go about it? How do I start? What do I do? John?
Well, first of all, Patrick, you purchase an SLR camera with a manual B set in, and then you can purchase a small development tank and some black and white film, develop your own, and you can take some splendid photographs of the constellations like Ursa Major and Cassiopeia.
Total cost?
£20 for the equipment and perhaps 100 to 200 for the camera.
Sounds reasonable. Steve?
Well, if you want to do something rather more unconventional, I would say first of all visit our website. Read the frequently asked questions and maybe join the group. Purchase yourself a relatively low-cost webcam, and you need a computer, of course, but you could produce quite nice photographs of maybe things like the moon, and you could submit them on a floppy disk.
Thank you both. I hope you'll help me judge the finalists. Now, our newsletter is ready this month. Number 87. You can get it by sending your stamped envelope to The Sky at Night, room 5350, BBC, White City, London, W12 7TS. And when I come back next month, we are returning to Jodrell Bank to talk about the future of radio astronomy. Until then, good night.